For all you elk hunters out there, chasing turkeys is basically the same thing. I know the reaction you just gave me, but don't knock it till you try it, and don't try it without OnX. The Hunt app will not only help you find new areas on public ground, but I use it to find out landowner info to get permission on private ground that I see birds on as well. OnX Hunt has a special offer for you. Use code CAL to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt and find more birds this spring.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
From Meat Eater's World News Headquarters in Bozeman, Montana, this is Cal's Week in Review with Ryan Cal Callahan. Now, here's Cal.
An Idaho man was arrested last month in Yellowstone National Park after walking up to a bison and kicking it in the leg. 40-year-old Chance Yoder allegedly left his car, approached a herd of bison, and did his best Pele impression on the unsuspecting bovine shin. The bison was not amused, but it decided to let him off easy. The National Park Service says Yoder sustained, quote, minor injuries from the animal, but didn't elaborate. Yoder is lucky the bison didn't kick him in the leg. He wouldn't have walked away from that one. You won't be surprised to hear that along with disorderly conduct and approaching and disturbing wildlife, Yoder was also charged with being, quote, under the influence of alcohol to a degree that may endanger oneself. That helps explain Yoder's behavior, but it turns out that you don't have to be drunk to do stupid things with bison in Yellowstone National Park. In 2022, a woman got within 10 feet of a bison before it gored her. Another woman was gored by a bison in 23, though it's unclear how close she got to the animal. In another incident from last year, a woman went viral after she was photographed trying to take a selfie with the bison that was lying on the ground. She wasn't injured, but the Park Service is now constantly telling visitors to stay at least 25 yards away from bison at all times. Common sense, and so common. I think they call it like park brain or park syndrome, maybe. One of those things. Anyway, this week we've got Grizz, the crime desk, pheasants, and so much more. But first I'm going to tell you about my week. And my week is actually several weeks all in a row. To repeat myself, thank you so much for coming out to the Meat Eater Live Tour events. It means a lot to us. Great meeting you all. Phil the engineer on harmonica and vocals for the Bear Grease Render Band, as well as the VOG, that's Voice of God, backstage. Really just an anchor out there. And he was on the whole darn tour. We raised $25,000, donated to a host of conservation groups through trivia. Big thanks to OnX for all the support there. Big shout out to old Dave and Kelsey K. Big Dave, Kelsey K. for battling the crowds, trains, traffic, and trappings of life to make an appearance at the Tacoma show. Next week, I'm going to tell everyone which one of you two brought more joy to the tour. After all, affection is a competition.
Good. I can feel your anger.
So currently I'm back home in Los Angeles. Got the snort dog with me. We're hustling our buns trying to get out of the office and into the turkey woods. It's currently dumping snow here, and I have to head to the airport to pick up old B-Rad Leone. We're going to get a little turkey walk in and then do some podcasting. So, Another day in the coal mine here at Meat-Eater HQ.
It's the tree's sex organs, and today we're going to pickle them and eat them.
Just want to say thanks. A bunch of folks wrote in on like what I should do to the truck to make it run a little bit better, and maybe what I should not do as well. I ended up getting new leaf springs and Fox rebuildable shocks installed by a local company in town called Freedom 4-Wheel. Holy cats, man. It's like driving a brand spanking new truck. I love it. It's crazy. Now I just need to figure out the topper situation and we'll be highly mobile, ideally in time for elks and birds and all the rest of it. For whatever reason, I like fixing that old truck up. 20-year-old truck, you know. In Montana, it's got to be 10 years old to get a lifetime license plate, which is kind of the bar I set for buying a vehicle, whether or not I need to license it every year. Anyway, all right, before we get to the news, I got referenced this week's special drop episode with Kip Adams of the National Deer Association. You may notice I always call it the National Deer Alliance. It's, you know, there's a lot of acronyms in conservation, okay, folks? It's National Deer Association. Anyway, we discussed the Oklahoma bill about releasing captive cervids into the general wild population. The governor of Oklahoma, Governor Stitz, just signed that thing, which is an absolute mind blower to me. Please write in and let me know what you think about that one. All right, moving on to the animal attack desk. A shed hunter shot and killed a sow grizzly bear earlier this month as the 300-pound Bruin charged him in western Montana. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks reports that the incident occurred on private land northwest of the town of Wolf Creek. The shed hunter, who has not been identified, was walking along a ridge when he saw a grizzly standing near the top of the ridge about 20 yards away. The low trees and brush had kept him from seeing the bear, though he had seen a fresh grizzly track in a snow patch just a few minutes earlier. The bear, on the other hand, was almost certainly aware of his presence. The man says he had been walking with the wind at his back, and his 2 dogs were with him. When the bear saw him, it dropped on all 4s and charged. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks says the man was not carrying bear spray, but he drew his handgun and fired 5 shots at a distance between 10 and 30 feet. 3 of the shots missed, but 1 grazed the bear, and another killed it. A Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks spokesman said the bear was shot in the upper chest area, though he couldn't share any additional information about the gun or caliber. The hunter was not injured in the encounter. The bear was an adult female, estimated at 12 years old. She had a cub with her that was later captured by bear management specialist. It was taken to FWP's Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Helena, and the agency is currently looking for placement for the cub at an accredited zoo. The hunter is being criticized by online keyboard warriors for not carrying bear spray and for not turning around when he saw the bear track in the snow. If you want to know what I think, you know, none of us were there. Damn hard to say. I can't say this. I hate seeing these grizzly bears die in a wasteful fashion. Meaning, this hunter can't eat the meat and, can't utilize this animal, which does make it wasteful. Would bear spray have worked? He had the wind at his back. It may have. Again, we weren't there. Is this a big kick in the sack to grizzly bear populations in the state of Montana? No, it's not. We got a healthy population. The state of Montana kills a lot of grizzly bears every year due to conflict, right? This is kind of a drop in the bucket, but there's part of me that says if there were no incidental killings, we might be able to get management of the bear back to the state in a more expeditious fashion. So, bear spray is a great thing. I tell people all the time, carry bear spray before carrying a pistol, because you, just like most pistol-carrying folks, unfortunately don't practice shooting your pistol. And when you shoot a projectile that's 3 feet wide versus, 3 centimeters long, you got a better chance of hitting what you're aiming at. Grizzlies are protected under the Endangered Species Act, so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is still investigating this incident. While that investigation is technically ongoing, the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks felt confident enough in this version of events to publish a press release. If there are any updates, we'll keep you in the loop. Moving on to the crime desk. 2 teenage boys in Florida turned themselves in last week after a video of them dumping trash into the ocean went viral on social media. The video shows a troop of teens on a fishing boat off the coast of Boca Raton. Two of them take garbage cans full of what look like aluminum cans and dump them straight into the ocean. The video was taken by a local content creator who criticized the behavior on social media, and it spread quickly across the internet. Calls for punishment intensified until the pair, a 15 and 16-year-old, turned themselves in to game wardens. The parents of one of the boys have asked that their son be punished with community service hours related to ocean conservation. Good job, parents. Staying in Florida, the president of a homeowners association in Palm Bay was taken to jail last month after threatening a group of kids with a gun. The youngsters were fishing in a pond in the Stillwater Lake subdivision when 56-year-old Kyle Tate walked up to them and chased them away at gunpoint. Tate then took their fishing reels and rods, tackle boxes containing fishing lures and cast nets, and threw them in the woods. The kids were 7, 10, and 15. They don't live in the subdivision. Their parents say they've fished there before with no issues. Tate was booked in Brevard County Jail and was released after posting bond. He's being charged with felony criminal mischief and grand theft. There is no circumstance in which a 7-year-old should be chased away from a pond with a gun, but I suspect this had been an ongoing dispute. The parents might not know about previous interactions between Tate and these kids, but if they'd fished there before, I bet they'd been asked to leave. Again, old Tate should probably spend time behind bars for this. And honestly, I do not give two craps about the excuse. Like, if these kids who are 7, 10, and 15 are spending their time fishing for all the crap that we lump on young kids these days about being unproductive and doing drugs and porn and all the things. 7, 10, and 15, and they're fishing.
I mean, listen, we talking about
fishing.
Not a game. We talking about
fishing. Maybe they're fishing at your subdivision, but they're fishing, for God's sakes. Dude, you lost the plot a long time ago. Ugh. Somebody better figure out if this Tate is related to those Tate's cookies, because those are a big staple in meat eater grocery buys across the country. If it is, we're going to ban that stuff. Okay? This is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Plus, do you need a gun to approach a 7, 10, and a 15-year-old with fishing equipment? Dude, you're 56. That should be scary enough. Ugh, yeah, ugh. A 20-year-old man in Oregon is being charged with a litany of crimes after authorities say he killed 18,000 juvenile salmon. Joshua Heckathorn allegedly broke into a hatchery in the town of Reedsport, stole a container of bleach from a supply shed, and dumped it into one of the fish tanks. The incident happened on Earth Day, and officials at the hatchery were initially concerned that it had been the work of eco-terrorists, but it turned out to be something far less dramatic. No clear motive has been reported in the press, so this looks like a simple case of vandalism for the fun of it. But anglers in Alaska and British Columbia aren't laughing. Officials say that losing so many pre-smolt fish, that means, like, for layperson terms, little tiny baby fish that are pre-release. Okay, the smolts are the ones that are able to navigate downstream and out to the ocean. This act could mean a loss of potentially hundreds of adult salmon. Heckathorn is also going to have a tough few months. He's being charged with unlawful taking of Chinook salmon, making a toxic substance available to wildlife, and criminal mischief. Whoever hands down this sentence can make it as tough or as lenient as they'd like. The courts have the power to charge a $750 fee for poaching even a single Chinook salmon. Because Heckathorn poached 17,890 fish, his fine could theoretically be $13 million. That's unlikely, but that's a pretty high ceiling. Even if the judge was feeling lenient and was like, I'll only charge you for a third of these, that's a lot of dimp. If I was him, I'd be worried. 7 California residents are being charged with various wildlife crimes in what some are calling the largest Golden State poaching case in recent memory. Bradley Chilton is being called the ringleader of a poaching operation in which dozens of mule deer were killed outside the season and with unlawful means. Game wardens say Chilton and his cronies would drive around neighborhoods at night, spotlight deer, and shoot them with bows and rifles. They then removed the heads and tried to sell the antlers for profit. Charges Chilton face include but are not limited to conspiracy to commit a crime, waste of game meat, buying or receipt of stolen property, evading a police officer, possession greater than 3 times the legal limit, and hunting during closed hours. A lot of people think that getting life insurance means you're insuring yourself for yourself, but it's actually the exact opposite. It's insuring yourself for your family. So, if something happens to me and I'm not around anymore, I can have more peace of mind that my family can have some financial support, and that's where Fabric by Gerber Life comes in. More than once in my life, my journey, people have described me as an independent person, and that's how I want to stay. Even when I'm dead, that's how I want to be remembered. That's why I have life insurance. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done right here, right now. You could be covered from your couch in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. If you've got kids, and especially if you're young and healthy, the time to lock in low rates is now. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/Cal. That's meetfabric.com/Cal. MEET, fabric.com/Cal. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater.
Hey, I just sat down with the owners and operators of Maui Nui Venison. You've heard that name before because I've talked about them here on this podcast. They're on a mission to balance axis deer populations on Maui while giving back to the community and run a totally sustainable operation. Now, it's wild axis deer, which is an invasive species, but this operation is monitored and observed by the USDA, and they can commercially sell axis deer. Last time I went out to Maui to hunt axis, I did not kill one, which is where Maui Nui Venison would come in very handy for folks like me who want to get your own meat but aren't always successful and still want to have something in the freezer or handy in the form of a snack stick that is as close to getting your own as you can get, which is what Maui Nui Venison is. You can become a snack subscriber, get some axis deer sticks sent right to your door. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI venison.com, and use promo code CAL for 20% off your first order. Jumping over to British Columbia, a man has been fined $10,000 and has had his hunting license suspended for 15 years after investigators revealed that he'd poached a grizzly bear. BC conservation officers were given a tip that someone was hunting bears over bait in the Elkford area. Sure enough, they arrested a man named Guifeng Li after he shot a decoy black bear at the site where the bait was placed. A subsequent investigation revealed that Li had killed a grizz at the same site and harvested parts from the bear. There is no open season for grizzly bears in British Columbia, much to the consternation of local hunters. I gotta tell you, man, one of the biggest benefits of baiting bears is the fact that you get a lot of time to look over the bear, and you can, most of the time determine if it's a boar or a sow by patiently sitting on that bait. This dude shot a decoy black bear at his bait site. Just letting that out there. You come up with your own conclusions. Moving even further afield, 2 Buddhist monks in Thailand were arrested in connection to a wildlife poaching scheme involving a provincial deputy abbot. I will not attempt to pronounce the names of these fellows, but they were arrested after getting caught hunting in the Phu Khao Wildlife Sanctuary in the northeastern part of the country. According to media outlet The Nation, officials found a group of 9 poachers illegally hunting in the sanctuary when game wardens moved in. They were met with gunfire and the poachers fled. 2 of the poachers were caught, both of whom were monks still wearing the saffron robes you're imagining. It's probably hard to run very fast in those outfits, but, I can't say for sure. Anyway, these 2 monks eventually ratted out their compatriots, so no vow of silence, which is when officials learned that 3 of the other poachers were also monks. One held a position of leadership as the provincial deputy abbot, which doesn't mean much to me, but maybe my Buddhist listeners can fill me in. You're probably wondering what these guys were after in the Phu Khao Wildlife Sanctuary. I'm sorry to say that I can't say for sure. My tie is rusty, and producer Jordan Sillers holds expensive graduate degrees that are zero help in this situation. The English language newspapers are all reading from the same press release, and they just say that the monks were caught with 6 animal parts, including, quote, bull horns. That could be referring to the various species of deer in the sanctuary, including the Indian hog deer, samba deer, and barking deer. But it's more likely a reference to a guar or Indian bison that are the largest extant bovine native to South and Southeast Asia. English media also reports that the poachers carried a variety of firearms, including a .22 caliber handgun and some kind of homemade gun, which, I'm sure worked flawlessly. Moving on to the pheasant's desk. The Washington and Colorado Wildlife Commissions have gotten a lot of negative press recently, but they aren't the only game managers making head-scratching decisions. In South Dakota, the Game Fish and Parks Commission voted last week to approve a pheasant management plan that some say papers over the state's shrinking bird population. Listener Joshua Heyer reports over at South Dakota Searchlight that from 1960 to 2019, the state used what's called a brood count to keep track of the pheasant population. This involved driving the same roads every year and making observations about the number of pheasants and hens. Other variables, like male-to-female ratios and hunter-harvest numbers, were fed into a formula, and the Department of Game, Fish, and Parks would report the final population numbers annually. It wasn't a perfect system. No animal counting method really is, but by using the same system year after year, the state was able to get a good handle on whether the pheasant population was growing or shrinking. Unfortunately, the brood count showed that the population has been in steady decline since about 2008. The last brood count in 2019 reflected a 17% drop in pheasants counted per mile. Pheasant hunting is big business in South Dakota, and the department worried that reporting these annual numbers was discouraging hunters from buying licenses and going out into the field. So they made the controversial decision of ending the brood count. Biologists no longer drive the roads and make observations. Instead, for the past 5 years, they've used hunter surveys and harvest numbers to estimate the pheasant population. Supporters of the brood count had hoped that a new pheasant management plan would reinstate the old method. The 2024 to 2028 management plan aimed to, quote, improve existing population monitoring programs to develop survey methods to inform biologists on population status, reproductive success, and relative densities of pheasant populations. After reading the plan, some South Dakotans pointed out that the best way to improve monitoring programs would be to bring back the brood count. But the department had other ideas. Rather than address these concerns, they simply removed that line from the plan. Now the Game, Fish, and Parks Commission has voted to approve the new version, which no longer calls for improving the monitoring program. Why does this all matter? Because typically, no matter what state you're in, hunting is based off of these biologically based population estimates. That's how we know how much pressure, how much take we can put on any resource. So it, makes people uneasy, and rightfully so, if we're taking from a population, but we don't know the size of that population. South Dakota has been doing this for so long. Their argument is basically that they have invested so heavily in habitat in the state of South Dakota that the pheasants are there and they can withstand the pressure. The hunting population is going to tell everyone how the pheasants are doing, and therefore the cash needed in the brood counting can be used in different areas. Happy to follow up on this with other folks, but that's how I understand it. Just so you know, the new survey method, does appear to be delivering the intended results. Rather than report on the number of pheasants in the brood count, the new reporting method shows that there was a 6% increase in hunters and a 7% increase in pheasants harvested compared to last year. So, that basically says there's more than enough opportunity for the pheasant hunters. Moving on, and back to the Tiger King desk. The movement to ban lion hunting in Colorado has a new champion, Carol Baskin from Tiger King. If you have no idea who I'm talking about, Carol Baskin rose to national fame when Netflix launched its hit show, Tiger King. It dropped right as the pandemic hit, and I think Americans were looking for a mindless distraction from the end of the world. The show is about a big cat sanctuary in Oklahoma and its owner, a fella who went by the nickname Joe Exotic. Carol Baskin was his arch nemesis and the owner of a different cat sanctuary in Florida. Joe Exotic hired a hitman to kill Baskin, and the rest is Netflix history. Anyway, Baskin has lent her sober, serious public image to the push in Colorado to ban mountain lion hunting, and she's doing the local news circuit to push what may be some of the most uninformed nonsense anybody can hear. Here's a few snippets.
This ballot initiative is only about trophy hunting. It's not about hunting in general. When you have trophy hunters, they take out the biggest cats they can find, the most beautiful cats they can find. And these are the older cats that keep everything in check. It astounds me that there are people that find it fun to find these animals and kill them, to torture and maim and kill them and call that hunting.
Of course, this ballot measure that we're talking about wouldn't just ban so-called, quote, trophy hunting. It would ban all hunting of mountain lions and bobcats because it defines trophy hunting simply as killing intentionally. What's more, trophy hunting, as it's usually defined, is already illegal in Colorado. State law requires hunters to harvest any big game animal they kill, including mountain lions. I think most advocates of this ballot initiative understand that they're pushing lies and misinformation. But when it comes to Carol Baskin, I'm not so sure. Moving on to the caribou desk. A new study published in the journal Ecological Applications claims that wolf culls are the best way to recover caribou herds in British Columbia and Alberta. Big thanks to listener Sean Arth for sending us this story. Killing predators, such as wolves, to help ungulate populations is one of the most controversial management decisions an agency can make. Those opposed say that habitat restoration is far more beneficial, not to mention the fact that the wolves are native to the landscape and have a right to be there. Those in favor argue that, of course, wolves reduce the prey population, so if you reduce the wolves, fewer wolves will eat fewer prey. The truth is somewhere in the middle. At least it's highly dependent what regions and animals you're talking about. In Alberta and British Columbia, caribou populations declined by more than half between 1991 and 2023, and more than a third of the herds are totally gone. Wolves have always been on the landscape, but according to this new study, they've been drawn to caribou habitat due to human intervention. The roads and cut lines created to log timber have invited deer and moose into these areas, which in turn attract wolves. The wolves prey on the caribou populations, which exacerbates the loss of habitat. But there is some good news. The paper suggests caribou numbers have risen by 52% since about 2020, compared with what would have occurred if nothing had been done. There are now 4,500 caribou in the two provinces, about 1,500 more than there would have been. That's mostly due to wolf culling. Since culling efforts began in 2015, British Columbia has killed 1,944 wolves out of a total population of about 8,500. According to the paper, quote, wolf reduction was the only recovery action that consistently increased population growth when applied in isolation. When production pressure was reduced, rapid population growth was observed even under contemporary climate change and high levels of habitat loss. Wolf reductions alone increased the growth rate of southern mountain caribou subpopulations by about 11%. The paper acknowledges that habitat restoration is the preferred method of growing caribou numbers, but trees don't grow overnight. It takes many years to restore those cut lines and logging roads, and caribou herds need a quicker solution. The paper notes that wolf sterilization didn't work either, and thinning moose and deer numbers is too controversial because it would require killing nearly all of the prey animals. But targeted culling had a positive effect on caribou numbers. The populations are nowhere near their historic levels, but they're in a better spot than they would have been without any human intervention. We peoples contributed to this problem in the first place, so it makes sense that we would step in and try to restore some of that original balance. I do just want to put a little context around the destruction of habitat, right? So there is a situation where you would reduce the prey population in order to allow habitat to rebound. So a great example, right, is the Boise foothills. Because of catastrophic fire messing up a lot of habitat, there's a overpopulation of mule deer in the Boise foothills that are beating up the mule deer habitat. So the mule deer are beating up mule deer habitat because they've been concentrated into a particular area. Now, generally speaking, because of the state of mule deer, in the grand sense, we don't want to reduce mule deer populations, which means we want to limit the amount of does we harvest. However, in this particular area, they are going to eat themselves out of house and home to where there could be a population level impact if you don't proactively reduce the mule deer population. That's an example, right, of reducing caribou numbers in these areas where that habitat is on a steady decline, right? So the caribou is the predator of the food source. Jim Heffelfinger will write in, tell me how I messed that up, but also provide a greater learning opportunity for all of us. And that's why we're here, right?
As your body grows bigger, your mind must flower. It's great to learn, because knowledge is power.
Hey, want to tell you one more time, thank you so much for meeting us all out on the road. Very heartwarming to hear how much conservation means to all of you. How many of you stepped up and said, hey, just turned 50 whatever and called my representative for the first time. That's awesome. Don't be ashamed of that. Keep it up. This is a time in our country where we got to be able to voice our opinions, got to know our system, show up, testify at Fish and Game meetings, testify at the state level, even at the federal level, write letters, make phone calls, join conservation groups, right? Cool. I got to tell you too, man, just as a sign off, as we covered this in a special drop, so I got to kind of cover it here too, but I am the new board chair for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Patrick Barry is the new CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We're working our tails off to step in and make sure that public lands, waters, wildlife, access to those things are the battles that we're picking right now, where we're going to weigh in. This stuff has, shaped my entire life. It's, my main motivation for getting out of bed in the morning. And I want to make sure that it's around for everybody else too. So appreciate y'all joining us in this big ol' fight, which can also be a celebration of the things we enjoy, right? So thanks again. I'll talk to you soon. Write in to ASKCAL, that's AskCal at themeateater.com, and let me know what's going on in your neck of the woods. We appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Hey, I just sat down with the owners and operators of Maui Nui Venison. They're on a mission to balance axis deer populations on Maui while giving back to the community and run a totally sustainable operation. For folks like me who want to get your own meat but aren't always successful, you can become a snack subscriber, get some axis deer sticks sent right to your door. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI. venison.com and use promo code CAL for 20% off your first order.